I think we'll go ahead and get started because we are going to be recording today's session. So if people are joining us late, they'll see it online. My name's Caroline and I work on the NAFSA staff. Thank you so much for joining us here today. Well, while you're coming in, why don't you just let us know in the chat where you're joining us from today? And maybe if you did join us for the annual conference that week in May, tell us one highlighting moment that stood out for you, if you can remember back those few weeks. I know a lot has happened since then. We will be recording this session and we'll make it available on NAFSA's website. I know that the annual conference is a highlight of the year for so many international educators. I also thought it was important to talk about what is NAFSA the other 51 weeks of the year, because we're here as a community for you all the time. Let's see a few things in the chat. People joining us from different parts, mostly in the US from what I saw in the registration, and I'm hoping some folks from abroad will tune in and watch the recording. I'd like to introduce you to the people who are here with me today from the Member Engagement Committee. These are volunteer leaders, peers like you working at colleges and universities in North America. They're a group who are elected and appointed by NAFSA members to represent you and kind of serve as a connection between you, our community, and the association and those who lead it and are served by it. They help the community stay connected. They can suggest resources throughout the year, not just during the conference, but again, all the other times. So I'm going to ask them to introduce themselves by saying their name and what institution they work at, and maybe something about what they did after they attended their first NAFSA conference. So Maki, can I start with you?
Yeah, thank you, Caroline. My name is Maki Natori. I work at the University of British Columbia in Vancouver, Canada. And I'm the Member Engagement Committee Chair for this year. One thing that I did after the conference, one thing I do quite often is I'm on Network NAFSA. So that for sure is something I probably did, maybe I even during the conference, but yeah, definitely checked Network NAFSA to see what was going on in the chatter. I'm going to pass it on to Amanda.
All right, thanks, Maki. So I'm Amanda Broom and I work at Virginia Tech and I am the chair-elect for the Member Engagement Committee. And I would say after my first NAFSA, I found ways to found the communities where it made sense for me to be. So I do communications in my work. I found the marketing and communications interest group and I found my region. And so I just found opportunities to get engaged in the places that met where I was and what I was doing. And I will pass it off to Sumi.
Thank you, Amanda. My name is Sumi Song, and I'm the Director of Strategic Partnerships at the Green Program, and I have been serving on the MEC as a member at large for the past 2 years. It's been phenomenal. I joined my local NAFSA community in Chicago, where I'm still based, after attending my first annual conference. I attended the regional meetup, and there I met people from Chicago and then started attending local monthly gatherings. And those folks became like family for me. So, okay. I will toss it to Seth.
Hello, everyone. I'm Seth Hull. I'm also a member at large on the MEC in my second year, and I'm currently in Region 8, where I serve as an international student and scholar advisor at the University of Virginia in Charlottesville. And I think after my first conference, I took a much needed nap, but I was thinking back to that, like, all the notes and the ideas that were buzzing around in my head. I was in a student programming position at the time, and I remember learning about the campus and community programming network, and it was like what a great outlet for me to continue that conversation throughout the year with other people who are doing and living in the same type of work I was doing.
And Anna, can you just attended your first conference, my colleague Anna, who works on the NAFSA staff. Can I ask you to come on and say something that you did after the annual conference? Probably, definitely now, but what else?
It was definitely a nap. But it was my first conference, and one thing that I did right after we finished was actually subscribe to the Connecting Our World newsletter because I was helping run the NAFSA booth and I was speaking with one of my colleagues about it and I hadn't heard about it until then. So definitely recommend that.
And we'll talk about what that is later in today's webinar. So Caroline, in the first conference I attended, as I like to say, was in the last century. And after that conference, I started dating a guy that I had met at one of the sessions, and now we're married. I can't promise that for all of you, but definitely beyond the conference, NAFSA has been really important for me. And that's what I want to talk about, kind of what is NAFSA outside, in addition to the annual conference. If the conference is the spark, is the thing that makes us feel connected, that gets us excited, what's the things that keep that going all year long? We'll share a couple of examples and pathways for that, both things that are free, things that are low cost, things that are for you and would require an investment. And I hope that we'll leave you with just a few different ideas, some actions you could take today, tomorrow, or in the next 6 months to continue your connection with NAFSA. So I'll turn it over to Maki to talk about some of the different ways that you can do that.
All right, thank you. Yeah, so when we were thinking about today's session or conversation, the different ways that you can engage with NAFSA kind of fall into 4 areas, 4 categories, buckets, if you will. Connect, learn, contribute, and lead. So obviously, we've already kind of talked about communities. So NAFSA is a great way to connect with colleagues, new and maybe ones that you've known for a long time, and your communities. And you'll definitely learn. There's lots of opportunities to develop your knowledge through different professional development and resources that are available. And then, of course, I'm sure you are all coming with knowledge as well and different points of view. So you'll be able to contribute your expertise to the field. And also, if you want, there's lots of opportunities to lead through different volunteer opportunities. So yeah, lots of ways you can engage. So we're going to look a little bit deeper, a little closer at these 4, I'm going to call them buckets, and we're going to share some stories along the way. So the first one we're going to look at, our first category is connect. So I think we probably have a mix of people who are relatively new to NAFSA and maybe some folks who have been around for a bit. But I'm going to sort of spell things out in case we have some newer folks in the audience. So you're going to hear a lot of acronyms and names and NAFSA isms. So this is one, knowledge communities, sometimes called KCs. Okay. So if you hear that, these are the types of communities. It's more, I would say, professional. And it might be, you can look at them as communities that are more aligned with perhaps your role at work. And some people do many things. So it's not like you have to fit into one. You can be part of more than one, of course. And, this will help you connect sort of at a professional level. And this is your professional home base, right? And with the KCs, of course, they do a lot of activities at the annual conference, but there's a lot happening also in between the conferences, and that could be things happening like events, online events. You can look at the network NAFSA and look at the different discussions going on there, resources that they have. So so that hopefully gives you a better idea of what a knowledge community is, what a KC is. And I'm going to ask maybe a couple of my fellow presenters to share your experience with KCs and how you kind of interact with KCs. So maybe Seth, you can share with us a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. I mostly work within the ISSS KC realm, and outside of those sort of amazing updates that happen at the annual conference and then also at regional conferences, I, believe it or not, actually start most of my mornings skimming the daily digest from the ISTA, that International Student Advising Network thread. I use it as it's a great tool to sort of see emerging topics and trends, or just connecting with people who've had similar challenges and how I can learn from them so I don't have to reinvent the wheel again or see where they can help me improve my own processes or just simply asking or answering questions from fellows in the field. It's sort of to me like a little mini professional development session each morning that helps sparks my imagination and thoughts about how this could impact my day-to-day life.
That's amazing. Thank you, Seth. And I'm going to ask Sumi to add anything else
I would
and
totally
share your
second.
experience. Thank you.
Yeah, I would totally second what Seth said. So I'm currently in education abroad, but I used to be in IEEE, and it was the Daily Digest was my go-to. I would start my mornings with the New York Times and then turn to the Daily Digest. So yes, Seth, everything you said.
Awesome. Thank you. I think we have a poll. So you can take a look at the different KCs and the descriptions. And we're going to take a poll as to see which KC you affiliate with. And it is multiple choice because, like I said, you can affiliate with more than one. All right. And Anna, will you be sharing the results? Awesome. Okay. It looks like we have a pretty decent mix. No one's teaching from this group, but we have a lot of the student scholar services and ed abroad, of course. So that, makes sense. And then followed with international enrollment management and then education leadership. All right. Well, thank you. Hopefully you'll sign up for the to get the network NAFSA updates for your KCs. Right. So another type of group or community, another, I don't know, category of communities that we have are called interest groups. So IGs. Now, if you are reading about IGs and you look through historical kind of documents and things, you might see MIGs, MIG, member interest group, or special interest group, SIGs. Okay. Don't worry, that's all the same. They're all IGs. Okay. Right. So what are interest groups? How is it different from a KC? So basically, these are communities that are based more, I would say, on identity. So it could be related to your role or how you might identify with your role, or it could be personal identity, right? And this helps you connect with communities and find communities that have sort of maybe a shared background or a shared interest. And I know I'm part of a lot of different interest groups. So this is really, and I think we have over 30. So this is a really good way to find, some other folks that maybe you can share tips with or get ideas off of. They might give you information that could be used in your work, or they could give you some supports to help you in your role, with your identity and so forth. And I think we have an online meeting this week with the early career interest group. So there's lots going on. So keep your, eye open and keep up to date on your interest groups. And it's just another way to stay connected with NAFSA. So Amanda, I'm going to ask you, can you share a little bit about your interactions with interest groups?
Absolutely. So I find the interest group that I'm part of to be one of the biggest takeaways that I have from NAFSA, whether that's at the conference or outside of the conference, because they are the people that I connect with, right? I actually have a kind of an odd job for NAFSA. Like it doesn't really fit within any of the knowledge communities, but I have interest groups where who I am and what I do fit within those groups. So I can have learning opportunities with the online, we'll have speakers come in and talk about marketing and communication in the marketing and communication group, or we'll have encouragement for each other. So I just really have connected with my interest groups.
All right. Thank you. And and for me, I'm part of like I don't know. I don't know how many interest groups. I subscribe to a lot of their feeds, but one of the ones that I was quite active in, obviously being from Canada, is the Canada Interest Group. And so it's a nice place for both Canadian practitioners to get together or for people who are interested in, Canada or working with Canadian institutions. That might be, a good way to connect with Canadians. But what I did with the Canada Interest Group is I volunteered to be part of the committee, and the leadership committee. And so it was a really nice way for me to, one, connect with other Canadians and also just get some experience on coordinating a group like an interest group and organizing events. I know we would organize the reception at the annual conference. We would also have different conversations going on Network NAFSA and sharing resources. And of course, like, if there's common struggles that we're all going through as international educators in Canada, it's a nice place to be able to support each other. So, yeah, highly recommend getting involved in a few interest groups that align with what you do or maybe how you identify. I've talked about Network NAFSA a lot, so let's talk about it some more. All right, so what is it? It's the online NAFSA community, right? And it's great because it's very accessible. You don't have to be a NAFSA member to participate in Network NAFSA. It is an excellent place for these conversations to happen online. And there's lots of discussion. And I know that there's a lot of, someone will post a question of what do you do in this situation? How do you deal with it in your institution? And a lot of people will jump on. So it's really, really nice to see that kind of activity. So it's such a good resource for both support and also practical tips and how to approach things that we may all be facing. And there's also, of course, different resources that are available depending on the group that you're part of. And of course, if you can't guess already, I'm going to encourage you, if you're going to do one thing after this session, definitely log on. If you're not already part of Network NAFSA, join it and log on, check it out, look for which communities you might want to join, poke around and see what's available. Yeah, so I hope everybody does that today. So I think we're going to go on to our next poll about Network NAFSA. See if Anna can throw that up for us. Thank you. Okay. Right. So have you logged on to Network NAFSA before today? Let's see. All right. Okay. Very nice. So the majority of you have already logged in, and I see a few have not yet, but I am sure you're going to do that very soon. So yeah, thank you. All right. So we talked about knowledge community, so your professional sort of connection community. We talked about interest groups. Okay, it's slightly different. And I think next we're going to talk about regions. So that's another way that NAFSA offers communities. And so this is more, I think everybody in this on this call today is from the United States, except for me, maybe. But you can see if you're based in the US, there's different regions, and it kind of makes, I would say it helps make Big NAFSA feel a bit more intimate and like a tighter, smaller, close-knit community, because regionally, I'm sure everybody has different struggles. So this way, or challenges or opportunities, right? So this way you have a community for you that might be closer, physically closer to your home base, etc. Right? There's 11 regions, and all the different regions offer resources again and different events as well. So there's conferences, regional conferences, and I think there's going to be 9 regional conferences this fall, and I believe registration's opening this week, if not already. So yeah, so there's that kind of like the big bigger of the events in the regions, but there's also going to be smaller events and, online things and resources that you can access that are specific to a region. And for me, so this is a fun fact about Canada, British Columbia. We're actually part of a region, even though we're outside of the US. We're part of Region 1. So when I was early in my career, I actually got involved with NAFSA Region 1. I think that was my first volunteer position with NAFSA. And as I mentioned, it was earlier in my career. It was a really nice way to get involved that didn't, at that time, didn't feel as big or scary or intimidating to me because it was a smaller group, tighter group. And yeah, and I joined the committee. I helped with a conference organization and I learned a lot and connected with people that I wouldn't necessarily have met in another capacity. And I got to learn from these colleagues, just one, of course, with organizing the conference, but also learn from them about, how they approach their work and professional things. So I found it super, super useful. And I'm so glad that that was my first sort of introduction into volunteering for NAFSA. And of course, it's, now I've done a few other things with NAFSA, but this was my sort of starting point. Seth, would you like to share your regional story as well?
Yeah, I mean, I echo everything you said. I love NAFSA's regions and regional conferences for so many reasons. I've been in Region 8 now for just about 3 years after spending a long time in Region 6. And shortly after relocating to Virginia, I did make sure that I attended that regional conference down in Roanoke, Virginia that year. And it was great to start building that network and creating with colleagues in a new state and a new region. And how I was even surprised how, moving from Kentucky to Virginia to another region, that state or regional change, seeing how that could impact the work that we do and building that network within Virginia and Region 8 was something that I draw upon and have learned to sort of build upon in my work. And also, I think they're also just really fun. So, I mean, Region 6 had some really great conferences and great colleagues to connect with, and I got to give my props to them. But Region 8 is also showing up with some fun and flair. So, totally encourage you to check out the regional conferences if you're able to attend, and be sure to have a great time and build your community. We've talked a lot about, connecting in ways throughout the year. So let's chat a little bit more about some of the learning opportunities you'll have with NAFSA that can support your knowledge and professional development. So you'll see on the slide there are so many resources and programs that can help you learn and develop your career, from perhaps a year-long training program with the NAFSA Academy or an on-demand J1 advising course. There's just so much that you can take a part of. A particular highlight or two for me are the weekly email communications that NAFSA sends out. So the NAFSA News, that weekly newsletter, it comes out on Tuesdays. I love this just because it's such a great snapshot of current news or trends that are directly impacting the field of international ed. This week's newsletter, of course, featured a lot about the elimination of duration of status, but you'll find some really interesting content on artificial intelligence, but you'll also see a big list of upcoming events and programs. So I think it's a great way to share trends and stories with either leadership within your program or institution or your field about the context of the daily work that I'm doing, that we're all doing, or those who are perhaps adjacent to our field. You can sort of give them a snapshot or insight into what's affecting our world. Another sort of weekly newsletter that I end my week with that I highly encourage you to connect with is our Connecting Our World newsletter that NAFSA sends out. It's a weekly newsletter that comes out on Fridays that just distills top policy and regulatory developments that are impacting our field, and perhaps gives you some ideas on how you can use your voice to take action in simple or meaningful ways. And that could be as simple as just, again, sharing that with the people you work with, the people in your community, what is happening that's impacting our worlds, our professional and our personal lives, or perhaps you can take a little bit more concrete action in using something or going to call something that NAFSA is asking you to do. But Sumi, I know you engage with a lot of these resources too. Do you want to share a little bit about how you use some of these?
Sure, I highly recommend the hiring guide. It is such a valuable resource, whether you are a hiring manager or you're a job seeker, whatever stage you happen to be in your career. If you aren't already familiar with it, I highly encourage you to take a look. Thanks, Seth.
Yeah, absolutely. I echo that. It's a fantastic resource as well. So that there's so many on here. You'll get these slides, and I encourage you to check out these. But let's move to our next slide, and we can see there are also a ton of online events that are happening throughout the year. Just this month, there have been 15 different online trainings and discussions and webinars that are offered by NAFSA. Maybe you just joined from today's regulatory perspectives on the duration of status elimination, like I did. But most of these resources or most of these programs are free for NAFSA members or offered at a discounted rate. So if you're looking to the month of August, there's already 6 events on the calendar, and I'm sure there are more to come. We also, just to highlight those interest groups that we were talking about just a few minutes ago that are offered through, you can find more information on the network NAFSA. All of those online community gatherings are also free for you to do. So there's so much that's happening throughout the year, and those events are constantly being added and updated. So let's take a moment to hear from you all. Again, we've got another poll that we can throw up for you all. So what are your favorite NAFSA resources for learning and advocacy? It's a multiple choice, so pick as many that you've used, or if you haven't used any, maybe select one that you want to check out a little bit more based on our conversation. All right. Everyone's using at least something on here, which is fantastic, from the newsletters to our webinars that you're joining with us right now. NAFSA's webpage is fantastic and just so much chock full of resources for everyone. I love seeing Fanta on her LinkedIn events. It's just a great sort of intro to the life that we're all leading. The hiring manager or the self-assessment, I'll encourage you to check out the magazine, but just so many resources that I hope everyone takes advantage of. So thank you. And I'm going to pass it to Sumi to talk a little bit about contributing with NAFSA.
Thanks so much, Seth. So another possibility for engagement beyond the annual conference is to contribute your time and talents by sharing your knowledge, your experience, your voice. It is your contributions that help to strengthen the profession. Next slide, please. So another way that international educators can stay connected is by getting involved in NAFSA's advocacy efforts. Connecting Our World is a newsletter that is weekly, it's action-oriented, it comes out on Fridays, and anyone can subscribe, even friends and family members, anyone who is interested in supporting international education. So in the newsletter, you will see frequent calls to get involved, to take action, which you can do by, for example, using email templates that are provided, targeting U.S. congressional representatives. These templates make it quick, convenient, and therefore really easy to get others in your circles to take action. I am always sharing, and I know others here too, we are always sharing with friends, family, colleagues, both within and beyond international education. And with the IssueNet tool, NAFSA members can alert NAFSA, alert the association to emerging trends that they're seeing and challenges that they're confronting, to ask for help with specific issues. you are contributing to NAFSA's advocacy efforts in critical ways by alerting us to emerging trends, to regulatory challenges. So I was thinking, if you've used IssueNet, can you just put a thumbs up in the chat? Don't have to mention what issue, it was pertaining to, but if you've done it, thanks. Okay. Well, I know I've used it in the past, and I know Seth has as well. Thank you. It is there for you. I encourage you to check it out. Next slide, please. There are two ways for you to contribute right now, and that is by helping plan the next annual conference, which will be taking place in Los Angeles. The annual conference committee for the NAFSA 2027 annual conference is looking for folks to help review the hundreds of session proposals that they will be receiving in August. You can also, and this is the second way that you can contribute, you yourself can submit a workshop session or a poster presentation proposal. Should know that submissions are due in late August. I'm going to invite Maki to talk either about your first conference presentation or if you've, worked reviewing proposals in any capacity.
Yeah, thanks, Sumi. Yeah, I've done a few things, but I'm going to talk about how I sort of got into presenting with NAFSA, which also, oh, my cat, sorry. And that was with poster presentations. That sort of was my kind of first foray into presenting. And I think it was even before, like for other conferences, this was like NAFSA was the very first conference that I pitched anything to. And it was a poster presentation. And I think, again, felt less scary, less intimidating, but it was a good way to share and also have conversations with people that may have been interested in what I presented. I think it was called Connecting the Dots, working across campus to create programming for students. So, yeah.
Thank you. Would love to hear from you too, Caroline.
I love reviewing proposals. Before I was working on the NAFSA staff, I loved doing it because I could see what people were talking about. Sumi mentioned we get hundreds, but we don't assign you 100, right? We'll give you a handful. So you'll see a portion, usually in your area of expertise or your area of interest. Like for me, education abroad, I could see who was proposing what were they talking about? And it didn't take me all that long. I go online, I read it, I click, click, click. The other thing I'll say is I always tell people to contribute like this, you don't have to be the expert, right? You need to be the one that prompts an interesting conversation. I do sessions on financial aid. I'm not an expert. I find the people who are, I have them talk, I ask them the questions I want to know, and it can be a really, really good panel. So please don't let you and your imposter syndrome or worrying that you're not the expert hold you back from doing this. If you have an interesting conversation, invite someone to be on the panel. The first time someone did that for me in our Vancouver conference, it was a while ago, I felt so flattered. And it was about mid-career transition. It wasn't about DS status or anything. It was about how do we continue to grow in our jobs at mid-career. And it was very flattering. I got to meet new people. So please take this invitation to think about how you can contribute. Even if you don't feel you're an expert in this thing, I know you have expertise in something that will benefit us. Thanks for considering that call.
Thank you. I accept that invitation. That's really great. That's super helpful. I accept that invitation. Okay, next slide, please, for the sake of time. So also want to take a moment to talk about Network NAFSA a little bit more, which offers points of connection, as Maki mentioned, as well as opportunities to contribute your skills and knowledge in, say, discussion boards on hot topics in the field. So you can offer advice, you can provide guidance to colleagues, and you can share your experience. Fun fact, since the annual conference this May, there have been over 495 unique discussions posted on the KC, the Knowledge Community Professional Networks, with over 240 people like you contributing their responses, their opinions, and their guidance. And many volunteer leaders first become known or have first become known within NAFSA by contributing ideas and by participating in these community discussions. With that, I'm going to turn it over to you, Amanda.
Thank you for teeing that up. You were just saying how that can lead to leadership, and leadership is what I am talking about. Um, so our final way that we want to encourage you to get involved beyond NAFSA is leadership. And I know for some of you, maybe that is a scary word. As Maki said a couple of times, she wanted to do the thing that was less scary first. I fully recommend that, right? Find what is easy for you to get into. But I also recommend not writing it off, not saying, "Oh, that'll never be for me." Because you may surprise yourself. You know, Maki has been an absolutely phenomenal leader, and maybe back then you couldn't imagine yourself in that, right? So you took the small steps and got to where you are right now, and I'm so grateful that you did. So for all of you who are listening, maybe that is you as well. So on this slide here, we have kind of just an overview of opportunities to get involved in leadership. So if that is something that you're thinking about right now, take a screenshot of this and figure out where you want to get involved and hop in. Alrighty. Um, and now I'm going to pass it over to Anna.
All right, so everyone has mentioned how amazing Network NAFSA is, so I'm just going to do a brief overview of the user interface so that when you guys do log into Network NAFSA, you know exactly how to navigate it. So when you first log into Network NAFSA, this will be the homepage that shows up. It'll be just a bunch of different websites that you can, it'll be a bunch of different communities that you can join. Over here, this is where you can open up your profile, and you can also open your profile here by clicking the little circle tab, and it'll have a drop down with my profile. Once you're on your profile, you can go in, you can make any edits you would like. You can update your biography, you can add education or job history, your contact information. One thing that we do recommend you add is a picture. It doesn't have to be a picture of yourself if you're not comfortable uploading a photo, but even just a photo of a flower or your pet or a book, anything that'll make the experience more personal for both you and for the people that you're interacting with on Network NAFSA. Once you've updated your profile, you can scroll through our community listings. So if, like some of our MEC members have said, if you're interested in subscribing to any of the communities, you are more than welcome to. All of them are open for you, and you guys can tune in on any discussions that are happening. And it's really simple to subscribe. So all you do is you find a community that you're interested in, and there will be a little join button, and you just click the join button, and then you're subscribed. So after you subscribe to a community, there will be a pop-up that asks about community notifications. You can get notifications in real time, or you can do what I really enjoy doing, which is getting daily and weekly consolidated digests. That's where you can decide when you get notifications for the different communities that you're subscribed to. So for me, for a lot of these communities, I do the daily digest, and I get all of those notifications at 8:30 a.m. in the morning, and I can just read through them and then go about my day without getting a lot of notifications as people are having really lively discussions in Network NAFSA. So if you guys have any questions about Network NAFSA, please feel free to reach out to me. I am super happy to answer any questions you may have. And if I don't have the answer, then I can turn y'all over to someone who does.
Alrighty, I think that is me. So, um, as we were just saying, I want you to think of engagement as a spectrum. So you can get started with the connecting on NAFSA, as Sumi was talking about, just doing little things here or there, engaging in whatever way you feel comfortable with, and all the way up to leadership, where you get to kind of help steer the ship and help say, where is NAFSA going in the future? What is the conversations that we're going to be having? I want that for each and every one of you. So coming up this year, we have this slide for what is happening throughout the year. We've talked about so many different things. We've talked about ways to connect, ways to get involved, to learn, etc. So this is just kind of a really quick overview of a few of the things that are happening this year. Again, great one to screenshot. We're going to do a quick poll because we want to hear from you. What is the first thing that you want to do beyond the conference?
Sorry, I'm not seeing the poll, so you guys are more than welcome to pop it in the chat.
That works. Thank you, Anna. All right, as you're popping into the chat, the things that you see here or anything else that you've heard from us, we will move into the next slide, and you guys can just chat about that as we go on. All righty. So this might be a little bit overwhelming. We threw a lot at you, a lot of ideas, but here is a really distilled possible action plan that we've put together for you. So this week, we recommend logging into Network NAFSA. I feel like we've beat that drum quite a bit, so hopefully it sticks. Log into Network NAFSA, update your profile. This month, attend an event. And then hopefully this season, you can start really beginning to contribute and engaging in whatever way is meaningful to you. So again, another great one to screenshot, maybe print off, put on your desk so you can remember this is where we can go and how we can get involved. And I'll pass it to Caroline.
We did have a lot of information today, and I hope that gave you a sense of the breadth and depth of things that happen with NAFSA beyond the annual conference each year. I'll admit, the annual conference is one of my favorite things, and I go and I feel inspired. What's the thing that helps me keep that going throughout the year are the opportunities that we talked about today. So it kind of continues what you did at the conference. The conference, I bet you met someone new if you were there. You connected with someone. If you weren't there, maybe you met that someone online, or it gave you a reason to contact a mentor that you weren't going to get to see, but you wanted to, right? So there's that moment for connection. Contributing. There's been a bunch of posts about what do I do with faculty members who want to do XYZ on a short-term study abroad program. I'm overwhelmed with gratitude for the number of people who chime in to help out that person. That's how you can contribute. Learning, the DS regulatory webinar we had right before this, NAFSA is constantly trying to bring you those opportunities for learning because we want you to be successful in the things that you do in service to the students and scholars and faculty members that you work with. And then leadership roles. Once a month or more, I get to talk to these great people who tell me about what's happening in the field, who work at the institutions, and then help shape what NAFSA is doing, like this webinar, like some of the interest groups that you attended at the annual conference. So that's what leadership looks like to me, is people who are willing to say yes, people who are willing to help. If you're doing these contributes learning and leading, you are leading. Thank you so much for doing that. When we send out the recording for today's meeting, I'll include some of the links in the bottom of it. I'm also going to include a bingo card for you. A bingo card that helps you remember what are some of these things that we mentioned. And if you get bingo, if you fill a whole roll across, I want you to email me and Anna and tell us about it. Tell us about how you found those things, what it meant to you. So look forward to that. I'll just put in a mention here that if your institution is doing something really amazing, one of the ways that you can contribute and lead right now is to nominate your institution for assignment award. We celebrate those at the annual conference, but the application or the nomination process for that is opening in August, which I guess is like a week or so away, which is a little bit overwhelming to think about, isn't it? Anything left for the good of the order? Last minute thoughts here. Maki, anyone that we have on our screens here?
Yeah, I just wanted to say thank you everyone for sharing your thoughts and your stories. But I just wanted to say and remind ourselves that, NAFSA is an organization that is truly member driven, right? And so it's up to you and I say this to my students a lot too, there's a lot out there available, ready to support you, and it's up to you to make the most of it and you kind of get what you put in, right? So why not jump in and take advantage?
So true. Thanks for reminding us that sometimes the things we ask our students to do are things we need to reflect on as well. If you have an idea, right? If people say NAFSA could think about X, come tell me about it. That's what I actually enjoy hearing. And one of the privileges of working with the volunteer leaders like this is I get to hear those ideas as well and then take them into NAFSA leadership so we can think about them. Thanks for coming today. We'll have this recording available online so you can share it with a colleague that you think might be interested in some of these additional opportunities. Have a wonderful weekend. Take care.